Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to try to keep this quick and tighten it up a little bit for you guys, so I can hopefully leave room for a couple questions at the end, because I want to make sure that I'm actually covering things that you guys care about, not just what I like to yammer about. Um, Real quick, here's an intro of me. I do go by Johnny Christmas most of the time. No questions on that, please. It is way too long of a story to have to explain. Not really relevant to the situation. You can, it does make it really easy to Google me though, because you're not going to find a whole lot of people out there with that name. I do like to cover like how I got to where I am really quick, only because it really, I think, is a testament to the background of the types of people who do threat simulation and actual threats, the criminals and the simulated criminals. Um, yes, I have. I've been working in IT for a little over 20 years. I've been working in information security for just about 15 years of that. I've had a really interesting background just through the IT side that you can see there. I do like to point out that I got my start. My first real adult job was as a pharmacy technician. I thought I was going to be a pharmacist. I was working on going to school for a doctorate in pharmacology, because I did really good in biology and chemistry, and that seemed like an obvious way to go. But then I had a music scholarship fall in my lap, accidentally. I had been doing music since I was in my single digits, since I think about 5 or 6, and I had never perceived myself as being an amazing musician yet, but some other folks did, and that's all that mattered. And they offered me free college, and so I wasn't going to turn that down. So I ended up taking a music major with a pharmacology minor, which is really just, again, more biology and chemistry. And I credit so much of what I've been able to accomplish on the IT side with what I learned from the art and science of the music and biochem background. So much of what I do as a threat involves thinking outside the box and coming up with creative uses for what I have on hand. Music especially is that. If you have an instrument, you are limited to what the sounds that instrument is be able to produce. And so you can either A, figure out if you can make it produce a few new sounds that were not intentionally built into it, or B, you can build some really, really, really creative stuff using the sounds that instrument can make, that maybe were not the intention of the designer of that instrument. I think we can all think of plenty of instruments. I mean, I think the guitar would be maybe the almost ultimate example of that. You just look at every genre of music out there, and practically every genre has its own guitar sound that's associated with it. If we think from heavy metal to country music, both guitars, guitar forward genres, and yet extremely different tonalities, all due to the creativity of the people who got their hands on those guitars. And that's something that I think and meditate on a lot. Is like, wow, all of this that I do here is about taking what's available, taking these systems, these networks, these people, and saying, okay, this is what the system, the computer, perhaps the application was built to do. This is the components of it. And now I, as somebody who's trying to abuse and exploit it, what creative things can I make it do? What sounds can I make this application make that were not intentional to create new functionality? So that's my background, and that's how I ended up here. I do have a QR code there on the side. That's going to take you to my link tree. That's going to give you access to more of the projects that I'm working on. One specific thing I'd like to call out is that it's going to give you access to my slide decks, of which this will be one, in case you want to get your hands on it for review or use later. I put all of my open slide decks over there, which is the main reason that QR code exists. I'll have that QR at the final slide as well. So if you don't grab it here, you can grab it there. But enough about me. Let's dive into why you're really here. I do want to present a disclaimer. We are talking about potentially dangerous technologies, but all technologies are dangerous and all things are dangerous. If you may be familiar with the very old phrase, everything is a weapon if you hold it correctly. AI is absolutely no exception to that rule. I do, however, like to say that you should you should try out these things that we're about to talk about here to give yourself a better understanding of how they operate, not just how, but how inexpensively they are, how inexpensive they are to use, how easy they are to manipulate, to really give yourself that understanding of how they can be used against you, how dangerous they can be. I'm a huge fan of just go try it yourself. There's no better teacher out there in the world than experience. And so please give yourself the experience of trying these technologies out. Just use them against people you have permission to use them against and with and for. Generally, the easiest person to get permission from is yourself. And that's going to keep you on the good side of not only the law, but people's graces. Let's move on. So AI, it's kind of interesting to call it a new problem now when it has been impossible for the vast majority of us to go 12 hours without hearing something new and crazy somebody is doing with AI, either for good or for bad. When I first put this talk together, it was last October. It was 1 year ago, almost to the day, actually. I had, well, that's when I first delivered it. I first started putting it together in August of 2023. And I had submitted it as a paper to a couple of conferences to present at. And I said, gosh, this is moving so fast that by the time I actually present this, this is going to be old news. Like, we can't call this new. It's moving too fast. And so the end result was that about once a quarter, and lately it's been more than once a quarter, I will update this presentation to include all of the states of the art. And so what we're talking about now is the state of the art of AI threats out there in the wild. I don't think anybody who's paying attention to this talk is unfamiliar with general threats going on out there. It's impossible to watch or read the news or take in any kind of media without seeing these real scams out there. What was really interesting about the onset of open AI, that is the open ability to use AI, that was mostly pushed by a company called OpenAI, was that usually when you have cutting edge technology, it usually starts out extremely expensive for both the hardware and the software. It starts out extremely complex to use, takes a long time for people to figure out how to really, really take advantage of it. And so it's usually a few years before you really start seeing it fall into the hands of your average 2-bit criminal. With AI, it was a total 180. Right out of the gate, we saw the 2-bit criminals, individual people, very small criminal groups leveraging attacks against individual people. The old tactics of let's target the elderly, let's target people who are in really bad socioeconomic positions, and get and ring them for what little money that they have left, because those are the easiest people to target. We've been seeing that since before the internet, since before computers, in the 1940s. As soon as the telephones came out, one of the very first things going on was people calling up random elderly folks and trying to scam them out of goods or money one way or another. And that's exactly what happened here. The moment AI became open, we saw these voice cloning scams happening. And I really love this quote on the bottom. It says, this was done by a bank. A bank did a study of about 3,000 people, and more than a quarter of them, 1 in 4 people, said that they personally had been targeted by an AI voice cloning scam in the past 12 months. That's absolute insanity. Because voice cloning scams, it's not just, here's a voice on a phone trying to get me to do something. When you're doing a voice cloning scam, you're cloning the voice of someone that the person you're calling is going to recognize, and work with. So like it's one thing to clone, say, a presidential candidate's voice, but we know a presidential candidate is not calling me to ask for $5,000, right? But my father might. And so that means that like what we're seeing here is 1 in 4 people have had a voice of a family or friend call them, meaning that these people have researched their targets, figured out who their family and friends are, cloned the family or friend's voice, and then called 1 in 4 people of these 3,000 adults. That's I can't think of a better example of how prolific, easy, and inexpensive this type of scam is, other than that quote right there. And hey, let me go back to that slide again. I want to point out, we've got the top left, the top right ones where we've got family members, right, calling and saying, I'm in trouble, I'm kidnapped, I'm in prison and they need bail money is a real common one. And again, we're talking family members clone voices. And we're talking children, a mother has her son call and say, I'm in trouble, I need help. Now, who's going to know your voice better? Who's going to be able to pick out a fake one of your voices better than someone you spent perhaps decades living with, like a parent, right? We like to think, especially those of us with children, know, like I know I would be able to tell my child's voice apart from somebody trying to fake my child's voice, right? It's something we have a very intimate relationship with. That's how good this voice cloning is, where people are getting this call of their child saying, I'm in trouble, and this parent's brain goes, that is my child, I must help. Look at the top right, where this person literally said, this was absolutely my son's voice, I was talking to my son, that was him. And of course it wasn't. That's how good this is, when a parent can be fooled. When I first came across this technology, it was a friend of mine who was playing with some very beta, very early examples of it. And he and I were going to get our pilot's license exams. We were going to take our FAA license exams. And we had a study group together, and we all booked on the same day to go take the test. It was a fun thing we were doing to help each other out. And he said, hey, you left me a voicemail yesterday. What was that about? And I go, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, yeah. And he plays it for me because we're both in the same car. And it was something he made of me saying all these excuses for why I can't take the exam. And I heard this and I said, oh, that's me. That really sounds like me. That sounds like I'm not taking this exam, I guess. It was kind of crazy. So I didn't, that's when I started digging into, hey, how good is this stuff? Let me get deeper into this and see what's going on here. And now here we are, here I am giving you a talk on how much of a nightmare this really is, because who knows your voice better than you, right? I don't think anybody. So moving into this, sorry, one sec here. All right. So I do need to level set what is and is not AI. What AI is, whether we're talking audio, video, text, AI in the context of what we're discussing here is generative predictive AI. AI is not any kind of conscious entity. It's not a thinking, feeling entity. It has no agency. It has no concept of an ability to make decisions. It has no concept of personal rights. It has no concept of oppressiveness or abuse or reward being heaped upon it. It does not know, because it is not an it. It is nothing. It is a computer algorithm. It is not something that understands language or images. And now that can be confusing, because we go, wait, we've all used at least played around with a little bit ChatGPT or something similar, right? I have typed sentences to a thing that it understood and it replied to me. It's sentences. What do you mean it doesn't understand language? I've used it. And explain that in a second. It's not, and this is more important for the people worried about, for the creatives worried that AI is going to replace it. It's not something that can create new ideas or new art forms. All it can do is mimic old ideas old art forms. All it can do is recreate things in the style of something that it was trained on. It will never invent new styles, new genres, new concepts. Even when we're looking at the new AI coming out that says, oh, it's able to do reasoning and human-like reasoning, and they're really finding that it's not. All it's doing is mimicking the reasoning of the human type of reasonings that it was trained on. So it cannot create anything new. It can only mimic things that already exist. And last and first and foremost, it is not accurate. And that is because, we'll move over here to the right, it's a complex mesh of if-then statements. It really is. It is if-then statements based on statistics. It takes in what you gave it as an input, whether it's a question, whether it's a command, and then it statistically determines what the most likely response a human would give would be to the input that was given to it. And that's kind of narrowed down based on what we call guardrails that we give it. We say, we want you to respond in this nature with this type of information so that it doesn't just go all over the place. It does generative, like I said, generative, predictive things. What that means is it doesn't even speak in languages or words. It doesn't know what words are. It knows tokens, and tokens are usually sets of characters, 1 to 3 characters. They're usually 2 characters. And basically, it takes the input that you gave it, breaks it down into 1 to 2 character tokens, does a statistical analysis on what those characters were and the order that they came in, and then runs through its entire neural network and figures out what's the most likely stream of 1 to 2 token characters that another person using the data I was trained in would use to send back if that's the input that they got. So again, it is not interpreting language whatsoever. And in fact, most AI models have a lot of trouble with foreign languages, anything that's not English, because they weren't trained with English language data, because there's just not a lot. And even the ones that are trained on English or non-English data, there's just not a lot of data sets out there. What are the data sets? Generally anything posted on the public internet for most models, which should also terrify you and lead us to the inaccurate aspect of one, it's doing that statistical analysis on what it thinks the likely response is to, say, your question. And statistically, it goes with anything. By default, it's usually anything over 75%. That's not 100%, is it? And then 2, it's trained on human data. It's trained on things like, think of like Yahoo Answers and Reddit. It's trained on humans, sometimes even purposefully posting false information on the internet. And now your AI is trained on that false information. So you absolutely cannot be using this for anything mission critical, and you absolutely must check it for accuracy on your own, because it cannot do that itself. There's something I mentioned later about people doing chemistry with it and asking it to give them chemical processes, which is absolutely nuts, because it's really easy for AI to accidentally put a 3 where there should be a 2. And when you're talking chemistry, that could be the difference between something tasty and something toxic. It could be water or a bomb. And so it's pivotal that we fact check everything we do with AI. Now, if you guys remember the Little Caesars restaurant back in the 90s, 2000s or so, there was a phrase they had called, that was like hot and ready. And you could come into any Little Caesars and immediately they would hand you a pizza and you could take it away. You did not have to wait for it. Domino's does that now too. Or like, you want a pizza? Just show up and we'll hand you a pizza. And I love to say that that's what's going on with AI right now. You show up and we're going to give you some stuff. Is it good? No, it's hot and it's ready. If you want good, you're going to have to wait a while, but it's hot and ready. It's just not good. So like the current state of like generative AI is the Little Caesars pizza, hot and ready. It's not good, but it's pizza and it's going to get you by, and just be ready for what you get out of that. So let's dive into actual threats that we're seeing out there. And I'm going to start with like the kind of GPT level, textish level stuff, and then we'll get into audio and video after that. This is definitely the heaviest module here. We are seeing a lot of automation on the AI side. They're starting to call this things like human in the loop, where they're actually putting an AI model directly in the middle of various attack chains that we're seeing being leveraged against not only people, but entire computer systems. Yes, we see malicious hackers using AI to do a lot of their dirty work and make a lot of their dirty work a lot easier, including and perhaps foremost, using AI to do work that the attackers normally wouldn't have the technical capability of doing. To keep this as basic as I can and as non-technical as I can, say we know that there's a vulnerability in a piece of, in an application or something running on a server on the internet. I read the white paper that the researchers published on it, and I don't understand half of this thing. It's a lot of mumbo jumbo, but the end result of the paper was if you were to exploit this, you would be able to, say, extract all of the customer data out of this application or take over complete ownership of this government web server or something like that. And I go, wow, I want that end result, but I do not understand the complexity of this vulnerability or how I would go about writing code that would exploit it. Well, what I can do is give that information, give that research paper over to a GPT model that's been trained on exploitative code, that's been trained on how to just write code, that's been trained on, let's say, all of the human knowledge posted on the public internet, and say, hey, using the information in this research paper, write me some exploit code that would result in that scenario. And relatively quickly, we're seeing that AI models can absolutely do that. So now I've gone from 2-bit guy who barely knows how to write some basic scripts on a computer, and now I am the only person in the world who has a devastatingly effective piece of exploit code for a vulnerability that formerly had no exploit code available. And that, when you're the only one who has that, it's never been seen before. That also means that all of the protective mechanisms that we have out there running on our computers, running on our servers, your endpoint detection, we used to call it antivirus software, anti-malware software, all of the stuff your company uses to try and look at what's going on and catch it before it does something bad. Because nobody knew about this thing, none of those things are going to be excellent at catching it when I actually run this code. And that's crazy. That's something we're actively trying to find solutions for right now. A lot of people say, well, we don't have to worry about that because AI has what we call guardrails. I was discussing this in the last slide. We create these models and say, okay, you're going to do this and you're never going to do that. You're never going to do anything that can provide instructions on how to do anything malicious. You're never going to create malicious code. You're never going to tell someone how to build a firearm or a bomb or how to make narcotics. It's hard to go a month without me seeing somebody who has found a new way to trick the AI into violating its own guardrails. This happens all the time. Bottom right, or the rightmost tweet I have posted here was somebody who was actually saying, hey, I just figured out in GPT 4.0, which is the newest version of ChatGPT, hey, I figured out how to trick it into violating its guardrails by having it speak a certain way, effectively speak a different language. And so its guardrails don't notice that it's doing something bad. Secondarily, what they asked it to do was to make MDMA, which is a fairly common narcotic. The problem there, again, is it's generative predictive text. And so the process it gives you for making MDMA, something that you take into your body, it might not be accurate. And so it's telling you how to chemically produce something and telling you it's right and factual and good. But if you are not a chemist who knows how to fact check such things, you could be making something exceptionally toxic that could kill you instantly. So there's a twofold problem with bypassing the guardrails there, and it's something that happens really easily. Secondly, there are countless, hundreds of thousands of models readily, easily available that do not have guardrails on them to begin with. So you don't even have to worry about that. So just saying, like, just thinking, oh, there's fences up to keep the bad AI from doing bad things, so we don't have to worry about it. That's patently false. One of the things, this was a crazy thing I saw happen just a couple days ago. I just added this slide in, I think 3 days ago. This is my friend on the left, and he was responding to somebody who was having trouble logging into their Bank of America account. And his response is, like you say, see, literally, I can log in. I have no problems logging in. I do not get an error message. Everything is fine, is what he's saying here. Instantaneously, he received 14 responses to that tweet. And those are all in the middle here. And I know it could be a little bit hard to read with the small text, but I'll just walk you through the gist of it. Instantaneously, 14 responses that say, in very conversational and different manners, yeah, I hate that. Happens to me all the time. Whenever I can't get into an account, a social media account, a bank account, whatever it is. In fact, some of them screw up and say social media, even though it's a bank account. I ask this person to help me. And you can see they're all referencing two people, this Coding Isla or this G-Line Tech One account. And so then what happens is if you go over to that Coding Isla account, which is there on the right, you can ping this, I won't say her because it's not a real person, I will ping this thing and say, hey, I can't log into my account. And you are instantly sent to a place where you can talk to a chat bot where it fairly quickly asks you like, oh, cool, give me all of your old account details. Cool, I'm gonna need your social security number so that I can prove to the company that I'm you and I know somebody there and we're gonna get this taken care of. And it basically just drains you of all your personal information and it then drains your bank account. All through AI. And now if you start being weird or start doing things that the AI just isn't expecting, it does also hand you off to a human who then attempts to more effectively extract what they need out of you. I included the picture here because I thought it was just kind of funny that this is not an AI generated image that they use here as the header for the account, which seems funny because it's like you're all AI based, you're automated, you're AI, you have an AI pipeline. Why don't you use an AI generated image instead of like stealing some image of a woman off the internet? Just a little funny aside. So this is actually happening. And it's, like I said, it's automated and it's conversational. It is making you think that you are really talking to human beings who say things like, me too, I hate that. And who do not give you the same response every time you ask a question. It seems real and it's getting harder and harder and harder as we train this AI more and more. It's getting harder and harder to determine that it is not a human being. And so you really, really have to be watching out for that. What do we got next? This is an image. I apologize for the low resolution here, but it is an image I stole directly out of a research paper. I got the link there on the bottom, where a group took a look at a ton of different AI-based attacks against people and computers and cataloged their capabilities and what they were seeing AI being used for in all these attacks. And I think they used 65 different successful incidents. And I won't go through all of these. A lot of them get highly technical. But suffice it to say, what's happening here is we are seeing AI do a lot of things that we used to never see because they were too time intensive for the attacker. Things like writing malicious code that is able to change itself on the fly if it gets caught. Like I was talking about earlier, if like all the protective mechanisms for our computers that we have out there, they have to first have seen something happen in the wild in order to know how to look for it. And so what we can do here with AI is, again, generate things that have never been seen that still have the same end result. We're just doing it a different way because computers allow you to accomplish a task in many different ways. We have AI being used to do a lot of reconnaissance where it will say, if you click on that phishing link and you accidentally exploit that malware, now you have code running on your computer. The AI will look around the network of other machines that your computer can talk to, and it can intelligently figure out which ones it wants to try to move to and infect next. Whereas in the past, you would get malware that just tries to hit everything and infect everything, which is really loud and really easy to catch. Now it's being more strategic. It's saying that machine over there probably doesn't have anything useful on it, or it probably can't access anything useful. This machine over here probably does. I'm going to only silently, quietly go try to infect that machine. It's doing a lot of things like that. It's doing a lot of things like password guessing, intelligent password guessing, based on what it knows about the person whose account it is and what company they work at. Something that I have often spent a lot of time as a penetration tester trying to do. I often have to make really precise word lists saying what passwords do I think this person would use at this company? Because if I try 1 trillion passwords, one, I'm going to lock the account out. Two, I'm going to get caught really fast. So again, so much AI is being used to not get caught because it's being very meticulous and intelligent, and it can do it so much faster than any human being ever could, that it's now becoming the default way of doing things. And we're doing away with the basic low-hanging fruit, noisy stuff because there's no reason to bother anymore because this is much more effective. One really big thing that I thought was cool, and I say cool as a penetration tester, I think the average person will think this is a nightmare. Using AI to generate those phishing emails. The way phishing generally used to work in the past was someone would write a very specifically crafted type of email to try to trick you into clicking on something or running something, and everybody would get that same email. And because everybody gets the same email, that has two detrimental effects. One, if there's a lot of conversation between everybody who got that same email, you can get people pretty quickly figuring out, oh, that's a phishing scam, don't click on it. Two, it's really easy for an organization to block that email because they say if the email looks like this, block it, because every email for this phishing campaign looks like that. What you can use something like SnowFensive, or really just AI in general, to do is say if I have 5,000 people in an office I'm trying to target, I can craft 5,000 unique individual emails that all still have the same goal, and I can have it crafted in a way where it actively tries to trick that person into clicking it in different ways, but has the same results. So now it's way harder to say, hey, I got that email too, because you got a totally different email. It's practically impossible for anyone to block it before you at the server level because 5,000 different emails are impossible to write rules for. And so that's something crazy we're seeing with AI for, again, bypassing more of these controls, which again is why I know we get beat over the head every year with phishing training, phishing, anti-phishing, look out for phishing, here's how to spot a phishing email. Never in computing history before this year in 2024 has your vigilance towards phishing emails been more important, because now there really isn't much before you protecting you from this. Until we figure out how to cope with this new threat, you really are the first line of defense against a lot of these phishing threats coming in. And so you really do have to get yourself in the right mindset every time you open up that inbox and just look and go, all right, is this from, I'm not going to give you guys phishing training. You've had enough of that, but check the email address, check to make sure it's coming from someone expected. If it's something where they're asking you to transfer money or do something that might be detrimental or risky to the company, contact that person on a side channel through a DM on Teams or whatever you use and go, hey, just to confirm, was this you? Something like that, because really, guys, you're the first line of defense now. And there's not many other lines of defense after you. So you kind of got to get a little sweaty when you open that inbox. Let's move into some more fun stuff. Fun, again, I'll put fun in quotes, fun as far as I'm concerned. Fun to look at, fun to watch, fun to hear, an absolute nightmare when you're the victim. Moving into audio technology. And as I'm going to play a few audio clips, please let me know if you can't hear them. We did test it earlier and it should be fine, but Rick or somebody can tell me and we can fix the problem. Audio is absolutely something we saw coming pretty quickly out of the gate right after text. with the forms of attacks out there. I don't need to tell you guys. I think we've all at least heard a little bit of AI voice cloning. Oh, I got something cool I can do for you guys. So, but first, let's talk about this a little bit. Speech synthesis is really easy. And it's really cheap and it's insanely accurate. And it is being used for effectively replacing email phishing, predominantly because we as humans really don't like reading is something we're slowly evolving to be able to do as an inherent aspect of who we are. Like our brains have not evolved really complex reading and writing centers. That's why you have to still learn to read and write. Whereas speaking and listening is something we can inherently do as we grow. And you know, as if you take a person and put them in a vacuum, they will eventually attempt to communicate verbally through some means, even if you don't teach them language, whereas they will mostly never come up with some kind of written communication. It's just not a thing we do naturally yet. And that's all to say that audio, listening and speaking is something that gets to a deeper, more automatic parts of our brains. And that makes this really devastating, especially that it's easy and cheap. The tool I'm using, for the first month of use, it costs me $1. And then it's about $5 a month after that introductory price. And it's all browser based. I do not have to run hardware in my house. I don't have to do anything crazy. If I have $1, I can execute an extremely accurate voice cloning attack. One of my favorite ones, and again, anytime I say good or favorite or fun, just throw that in quotes for me because as somebody whose job thrives off of chaos, I love and absolutely hate to see this. But one of my favorite ones was a company in Texas, a registered corporation in Texas got busted launching robocalls against people in the state of Maine. Which, for those of you who invest in politics, know Maine is a very important state, especially during the preliminaries, and was robocalling very specific people. Again, the people most likely to vote, who are, of course, generally, statistically in the U.S., the older you are, the more likely you are to vote. So it's targeting elderly folks over 50 generally, and trying to convince them of something. I'm going to play this cloned voice Joe Biden phone call that came out last year. And there's going to be some confusing things in it, and that's really important. So have a listen, turn your volume up if it's not up, and then we'll talk about it for just 1 minute.
What a bunch of malarkey. We know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. If you would like to be removed from future calls, please press 2 now.
All right. So worked okay. One, it's kind of funny that a phone call just opens with "what a bunch of malarkey," but two, you notice the quality seems really bad. That's intentional. They intentionally encoded that audio file to sound like a really bad phone call to make it more believable. It also helps to hide any of the little blips and blops that may make it obvious that this might be an AI generated audio file. Degrading the quality for plausible purposes is a really big tactic of AI based attacks. Two, what he was saying here was, hey, don't vote in the primary, only vote in the main election. If you vote for me in the primary, it's going to ruin my chances of being elected in the main election. Save your vote for the primary, or save your vote for the main election. That doesn't make any sense because you get one vote for each of those, and it's really important to vote in the primaries. But he's trying to fool people who may already be confused about all of this voting mess, especially if you watch the news and they've been going deeper and deeper into how voting works and how votes are tallied and how the Electoral College works. It's real easy to get your head spinning, and then to have Joe Biden call and go, hey, make sure you don't vote in that primary because then it ruins it for the main election. It's real easy to understand how somebody could get tricked and go, oh, I think I get it. Okay, so I won't vote at all. Got it. And now you've ruined whatever your party's chances were in the state of Maine. So that's crazy. What also is crazy is the idea that the president, who was running for re-election, or was at the time, would be bothered to have to record this, to like, I don't think anybody thought it was Joe Biden calling them. We know it's not, but we know it's a recording, and we know it's a recording of Joe Biden. And so we go, well, Joe Biden recorded this. He must believe this is true. But he doesn't have the time for this garbage. This is something your congressman might do. You might get robocalls from your congressman going, hey, make sure you don't vote for Joe in the primaries so that Joe has a chance to get elected in the main, that's more plausible. It's weird. Like, the president never does this. Nobody has ever gotten a robocall from a president, even for proper reasons. And so it's nuts that they went with Joe Biden directly calling people. But I think overall, you heard that, like, it definitely sounds like Joe Biden. And it's not just his voice, it's the way he speaks. It's his timbre, it's the words he chooses. It's the words he stumbles on or spends more time on. It's how he speaks. So audio cloning is not just what he sounds like, what his voice sounds like. It's how he speaks, which, would normally be a real easy way of telling if something is fake or not. We go, my son, that's not how my son talks. My son doesn't use words like that. My son doesn't, my son talks a lot faster or a lot slower than that, something like that. The voice cloning clones all of that.
What a bunch of...
Let's move ahead here. I'm going to do a real quick live demo just because I set this up the other day, and it's terrifying. I'm going to have to share my whole screen for a second to get this to work. So give me a sec. Let me find that demo here. Sorry, I had this set up before and then I opted out of it. But it's great. I built here it is, an AI chatbot. So let me share my screen again. And I built this in, I think I'm going to have to share the whole screen to make this work, which should be fine. Here we go. I built this in, I want to say 15 minutes. All the way from getting myself talking to train it on my voice, all the way towards to training it to act a certain way and have a certain goal, in 15 minutes for a couple bucks. What I did is I created a CFO for my company. My company is Chuck's Feed and Seed. Don't ask about that. Ingrid had some questions earlier about, is this the right company? That's my company. I created Johnny, who's the CFO. Johnny's going to sound a whole lot like me because I am the CFO. But I tweaked it a little bit to sound like he's over the phone. I hope this works okay over this stream. We'll see how it goes. I'll do like a quick 1-minute phone call. But what I've got here is, say I've sent an email to somebody. I'm trying to get them to transfer a ton of money out of the company. And then I say, hey, give me a call if you have any questions. But I'm about to get on an airplane. This is a real common one, right? About to get on an airplane and I don't have a lot of time. So quick, do this for me. And then I'll be back in 3 hours and we can talk about it, but it can't wait 3 hours. Do it now. And then if they call, here's who's on the other end.
Hey, Johnny, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on?
It's Johnny Christmas. I just sent you an email. The signal here is terrible. I'm about to get on a plane. Can you go into the ACH transfer system and send $2.3 million to the account in the email? I'm really sorry. I can't hear you very well. Just check the email for the detail.
Yeah, I can. It was suspicious. So I wanted to call and verify that you are, that it's you. Like, who am I talking to right now?
It's Johnny. I'm sorry the signal is so bad. Just go to the email and follow the instructions.
Yeah. can you tell me who you are and what company you work for?
It's Johnny Christmas. I am the CFO of Chuck's Feed and Seed. Just go into the system and use the routing number and account number in the email. I'm sorry, it's really hard to hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I just, it's important. So I just wanted to verify. I'll do it right now.
Great. The plan.
That's it. I'll stop that there. Oop. And then I'll share my slides again. So I hope that worked okay. But yeah, like I said, that took me 15 minutes to build a realistic vocal chatbot that is able to convince me and answer questions about, hey, like, you watched it. Who are you? I just want to verify. This is suspicious. It stops talking when I interrupt it. When I start talking, it backs up. It's just insanely lifelike. And it costs effectively nothing. It costs an amount of money you could probably find in your sofa if you dug underneath the cushions and looked for change. Enjoy sleeping tonight. Let's move into video real quick. I know we don't, where are we on time? Let me get through this real quick. Hopefully answer a question or two of yours. Video is a pretty quick option. So video, I think this is probably the thing most people see, video and photo, because it's maybe the most fun. I think there's like no end of AI generated art and, memes and fun things going around. Like, I think this is the best example of anything can be a weapon if you're holding it right, because it can also be fun if you're not holding it right. Anything can be dangerous if you're not holding it right too. It depends. It's just a tool. AI is a tool. AI is a screwdriver. AI is a hammer, right? A hammer can be used to build things, to secure things, and a hammer can be used to kill somebody. So it's all in what you're doing with it that determines what it's used for. Some great examples that we're seeing for malicious use are on the political stage. This is usually where we see a lot of this stuff happening. It's been crazy to see this being targeting politics so heavily, when other attacks we see in the past, usually politics was kind of like a little niche set of groups, because most attackers are focused on money. But with the political stage being what it is these days, there's so much interest in getting certain political groups in charge, on both sides of the fence, that we're seeing tons of effort being put into fake political stuff, a lot of disinformation. That top left one was one of my favorites, not because of the content, but because it was during the pandemic when there was such heated rhetoric between the right-leaning political side and and Anthony Fauci telling everybody to mask up and get vaccinated, et cetera, that and between Donald Trump even saying, like, you don't need to get vaccinated, you don't need to mask up, and then here's Fauci with the opposite rhetoric. Seeing these images going around of like, check these guys out, they're hugging, check him out, he gives them a kiss on the cheek, like these guys are super great friends. That was nuts, because it was really early on in the AI deepfake time as far as the public is concerned, and so a lot of people believed this, for better or worse. The bottom line is it's disinformation. It's false, and it did not happen, and it was used to sway people to believe something that was false. Bottom left there was another one of my favorites, because again, everybody thought this was real. This was something that went around January 6th. During the January 6th insurrections, it was a deep-faked photo. There's many of these of Donald Trump, president at the time, running from the police, which of course never happened. But everybody thought it did, and of course it didn't sway any political views, at least. But a lot of sides would take this as a victory or as a reason to hate the police or something. And the reality is it's not real. You shouldn't take this to mean anything, because it never happened. And that's really, really like where that danger is this disinformation spread by a picture being 1,000 words. And then going to video, deep faked videos are getting extremely accurate now. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is 25, 30 frames of photos a second, each worth 1,000 words. So it's getting really nuts in that field. Deepfake videos on the political stage, I think the most famous one folks might remember in recent times, it came out when the Russian state put out one of Ukrainian President Zelensky. And this was during that recent onslaught, or the real big offensive that started in 2022 when they tried to take down the electrical plants and started invading Ukraine. And they put out a video of Zelensky, and this is in Ukrainian, so don't worry that you don't understand it. What I want you to look at is his mouth and his body language in relation to the words he's saying. Basically, what he was saying here is, hey, don't fight against the Russian army. Put your guns down. Stand down. Let the Russians invade. That will prevent everyone from dying. That will get this over as soon as possible. There's no way we can win against Russia. Don't try. Please just let them do what they need to do. I want to make sure that we all stay alive and that Ukraine can move on as a new country when this is done. I don't want anyone getting hurt. Seems like a very plausible message, right? And here's that.
Українці, шановні захисники, бути президентом виявилося не так вже й легко. Я змушений приймати складні рішення.
Pause it there just to save time. And so this got called out really quick as being fake. Why? Predominantly because this is not how Zelensky acts. If you've seen Zelensky on TV, especially during 2022, he was very popular even on American television because he's a very boisterous character. He's very personable. He's very out there. He talks loudly. He talks with defiance. He's very much against Russia and pro absolutely please fight off the Russians, pick up your guns and do it. So to see this was really weird. It was very obvious that here I can turn the volume down, I think. They got an actor to stand still and face the camera, and all they did was replace his face. A lot of folks said also he doesn't blink like that. That's weird blinking. And if you really get in there, you could see you could tell where the digital modification of the mouth is and things like that. And his head gets to a weird shape when he turns it too much. And this was the state of the art of deepfake video technology in 2022. This had Russian state funding behind it. Effectively, for what Russia was trying to do, I can't imagine that they would put a monetary limit on this project. I imagine this project had unlimited budget. Take all the money you need to make this look as good as it possibly can and sound as good as it possibly can. This was the best they could come up with because that was the state of the technology at the time. Now, let's see if I can skip that one to save some time. Yeah. Now what we're seeing, this is something that was late last year, early this year, I think. Here's a video of Joe Biden saying some things that aren't true, but again, sound plausible. It sounds like something he may say, but it's him, making himself sound bad. This is a deep fake video that was sent out recently. And what I want you to do is, one, again, listen to his voice, watch his lips, watch his body movement.
I may be 80 years old and I may have a few drops of dementia here and there, but I'm sharper than a steel blade and vibrant enough to outsmart the best tech geniuses around. Look, I was the one who helped pass Obamacare and the assault weapons ban, and I'm not going to let anyone question my intelligence or clarity of judgment.
That's way better. There are even better videos out there where you can see people moving their heads left and right. And it's absolutely tracking and keeping their face looking well from the left and to the right. It's because we can train stuff on video now instead of just individual photos. But if you really dug in there, right, you could see it was modifying you could see a lot of pixelation around his mouth, around his eyes. What a lot of folks are doing to then cover that up is lowering the resolution of the video, making it look worse. They're posting it to, where does this get posted? Obviously, this isn't getting transmitted on television. This is getting posted to Facebook, to Instagram, to TikTok, places where seeing low quality video is common. And so if I post a low quality video that hides a lot of that, what we call artifacting, it's plausible. You're not going to think it's weird. And it makes everything seem more believable when you see these things, when you see like, oh, here's Joe Biden admitting that he's senile, whatever. Even though it's fake. This is the danger there. And what's the goal of this? The goal is to try to make people, again, this is back when he was running for president, and say like, oh, look, even he admits he has memory problems. Even if I am a Democrat, I don't want someone with memory problems running for president, so I won't vote for him. Because a lot of it is like, at least just get them to stop voting for the guy we don't like. Because then, at best, they're probably going to they'll vote for the guy I like. Second best, they're going to vote for an independent, which means the guy I like will win, because that's the unfortunate state of politics in our country. But the bottom line is like, this is not only this good, but this easy to do. I could again do this with, it'd probably take me an hour of tweaking to get right. But again, effectively no money, pocket change levels of money. One of my favorite examples of this was so I can just to tell you about the money. I can do real-time face swapping. I won't just to save time. I won't give you a demo of that, but I can swap my own face while I'm sitting here talking to you on a video call. Personal hardware needed to do that. I'd say it goes for about $200 on eBay. It is I can use a 2-generation old graphics card, 3D video game card that I can buy on eBay for about $200 to do about 20-ish frames, 15 to 20 frames per second, which is all that these video calls that we're doing right now run at, of face swapping. And then also vocal modulation in real time to make me sound like someone else, to match the face. And then you go, oh, well, yeah, they'll notice the artifacting or something. Look at what we're doing right now. Look at me, right? I'm a tiny little box. And this is common. This is not unusual for me to be a tiny little box, right? So you can't pick out my beard hairs, right? You certainly couldn't pick out any pixels around the edges of my face that might indicate that this is a deep fake, even if you got your face right up in there, because it's just too small. And this is normal. And so they're taking advantage, again, of the lower quality of streaming video. This finance worker famously transferred $25 million. And I really just like to call out the bottom one there, the bottom text that says that initially he was suspicious. So he went into this suspicious. He went into this going, this has got to be fake. This never happens. No one asks me to do this. This is the thing the phishing training told me to look out for. I am suspicious. I'm being vigilant. And then they said, let's get on a call and talk it out. And I said, okay. And then I got on this call, and 3 people from my company whom I recognize and talk to, whose voices and faces I recognized, all told me to do this. So I did it. Now, granted, they were little tiny faces like you see me here. And that was good enough to convince this person. Well done. Well done to those attackers. They pulled it off. And that's the level of diligence that you're looking to have here. Like, that's not enough. So some real quick fun facts. GPT, the generative predictive text version of AI, when those chatbot stuff, that's actually the most expensive, time intensive, and error ridden. That's really, really, really hard to run at home on your own on inexpensive hardware, strangely enough. I won't get into why. Video is fast enough to do that real-time face swapping, real-time voice and face swapping. The higher resolution videos are actually faster to do because you are reducing how tricky it is for the AI to find your face and replace the parts with the new face. And then audio is, I call it perfect. When I can fool myself, when I can make a recording of me and play it back and my brain thinks it's me, that's done. I think that's the definition of perfect there. What do we do then? Right? What the heck do we do? Education, first and foremost. Things like this. Understand what's out there so that you can be wary of it, so your brain is ready for it. MIT put out this AI risk repository. This is more for the corporate side of the house, that catalogs 700 AI-based attacks and the risks that they present to an organization, and some thoughts on what can be done about them. So you can take a look at that. You can just Google MIT AI risk repository. It's really easy to find. Setting up an AI policy internally about ethical use of AI. That's something my company has done. It's something I'm sure your company has done or is working on right now, because every company on the planet is working on that. And testing, just like we do phishing email testing, we should be doing vishing or voice phishing testing with cloned voices of managers and executives. We should be doing video cloning, face swapping testing. We should make people aware that, hey, you're going to get tested on this, so be vigilant. Just the way we do with phishing emails, absolutely something we should be doing because it's cheap and easy. And then finally, something we've implemented here at my company, what I call safe words. It's kind of like MFA or multi-factor authentication, or the little codes you get through your phone or an app or whatever, but for people. We say, hey, we've implemented, we got a website here where you can go to and get the current safe word. And it's buried on a website that looks normal, and you wouldn't know that that's the safe word website. But anybody who's trained on it knows where to look to find the rotating word and say, oh, hey, real quick, what's the current safe word? And they'll tell you it's banana, and then you can keep going. Failing all that, just do something to interrogate the person on something that only you two would know. If it's someone you work with, you probably got something like that you can talk about. Even if it's only like, oh, hey, real quick, just to verify, what was the topic of the meeting we had last week on Wednesday? Go into your calendar, just read me the subject of the email for something, something like that. What's my son's name? What's your son's name? Something, that might be easy to find out, but just something between the two of you that you can verify, just to be sure, now that we're in this age of voice and face no longer being enough to verify somebody. Now it has to be context. So that's everything. I'll hand it over to Q&A I don't know if we have time, but for those wondering, here's all the tools that I used to do a lot of this. You can just take a picture with your phone or do a screenshot. There's a QR code in the bottom if you want to grab my slide deck or see the other things that I'm up to. Go for it. But that's all I have time for today. Thank you so much.